I never imagined I'd end up running the family business, but with my dad's influence in the landscaping world, it was almost inevitable. I started out doing simple chores, sweeping, filing, until, little by little, I began taking on real responsibilities. Over time, I found myself appreciating what we did more than I ever expected. Dad wasn't one to coddle me. He made sure I spent plenty of time out in the field, learning the ropes from the ground up. "You can't run a business you don't understand," he'd say. By the time I finished high school, I wasn't just another worker. I was leading crews during the summer. That experience taught me the importance of hard work, dedication, and keeping your word. 7 years ago, when I officially took over the company, I felt ready. Sure, I had big shoes to fill, but between Dad's lessons and my own passion, I knew I could do it. Running a business hasn't always been easy, especially in the digital age. Technology makes things like payroll and invoicing smoother, but when things go wrong, it can create chaos. Over the years, I've learned to back up everything, both locally and in the cloud. These precautions have saved me during a few crashes. Still, enough about technology. Let's get to what matters, who I am and how my life took a turn I didn't expect. I'm Kevin Miller. My wife and mom stick with Kev, even though I hate it. I'm 35, 6 feet 5 inches, and 227 pounds, with a tan earned from years working outdoors. My wife, Ashley, is also 35, a personal trainer with blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and a toned, athletic build. We've been married for 13 years, and we have 2 kids, Emily, 9, and Lucas, 7. Summers Landscaping is a family business, started by my father and handed down to me. Since I'm an only child, it was clear early on that I'd take over someday. Dad made sure I worked for it, though. By high school, I was already leading crews and getting a feel for what it meant to manage people. When I took over, I expanded the business to include 12 crews, and now we offer full-service landscaping, including snow removal in winter. Though I spend more time behind a desk now, I still enjoy getting out on job sites whenever I can. Spring is always the busiest time of year, with taxes, contracts, and staff management piling up. This year, my mom decided to help out in the office. I appreciated her effort, but she's not exactly tech-savvy. One day, while trying to organize files, she accidentally deleted several critical documents. Thankfully, I had backups, but restoring everything took time. While I waited, I pulled up Google Earth, a tool I frequently use to get a bird's-eye view of properties before starting major jobs. After finishing my project review, curiosity struck, and I decided to look up my own house. I'd been thinking about adding a pool for the kids now that they were getting older, but as I zoomed in, something caught my attention. A red car parked in my driveway that I didn't recognize. I know most of Ashley's friends and their cars, but this one didn't look familiar. Judging by the snow on the ground and the fact that my recently completed garage addition was visible, the photo couldn't have been more than a few months old. The car stood out, but I couldn't tell what make or model it was. My curiosity only grew, so I switched over to Street View, hoping it might provide more clues. The Street View image had been taken later in the year, sometime in spring. The car was gone, but what I saw next stopped me cold. Ashley, standing in the doorway, hugging and kissing a man I didn't recognize. My heart pounded, and my anger flared, but I forced myself to stay calm. I printed several copies of the image and studied the man closely. His face wasn't fully visible, but something about him looked familiar. After a few moments, it hit me. He looked a lot like Mark Reynolds, Ashley's old boyfriend from college. That realization stung. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't ignore what I had seen. I needed to figure out what was going on before making any rash moves. Ideas ran through my head. Hidden cameras, recorders, even hiring a private investigator. But first, I needed to confirm whether the man was really Mark. I did a quick online search and found that Mark had moved back to town a couple of years ago after a brief NFL career, which ended due to a knee injury. He now ran a successful real estate business downtown and was married with a child. His wife, Laura, worked as an accountant in his office. She was attractive, with curly brown hair and striking green eyes, though in my opinion, she didn't hold a candle to Ashley. Despite his seemingly perfect life, I couldn't shake the thought that something might be going on between him and my wife. Glancing at the clock, 10:33 a.m., I decided to call his office. A cheerful receptionist answered, telling me that Mark was out showing a property and wouldn't be back for at least an hour. I didn't leave a message. Even though I didn't have solid proof of an affair, Ashley's behavior in the photo was clearly inappropriate. The man she was hugging bore a strong resemblance to Mark, and I couldn't ignore it. My frustration simmered as I grabbed the printout, ready to confront the situation. Just as I climbed into my truck, I noticed one of Lucas's toy cars in the back seat. It gave me pause. I needed to think carefully. Whatever I did next would affect my kids, not just me. After a brief moment of reflection, I started the engine and drove downtown to Mark's office. His real estate agency was in a shiny new building. As I walked inside, I spotted one of my foremen nearby but didn't stop to talk. My mind was set on getting answers. Dressed in my work clothes, I drew a few curious stares from the suited professionals in the building. When I reached the 5th floor, I stepped into Reynolds Real Estate and immediately recognized Mrs. Reynolds. She was slimmer and taller than I expected from her photos, but Laura Reynolds' friendly smile and firm handshake left a strong first impression. "Hi, I'm Kevin Miller," I introduced myself. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Miller. How can I help you?" she asked, her tone professional. "Mrs. Reynolds," I began, "I have a photo I think you should see, and I need to ask you a few questions." Her expression shifted as she realized this wasn't about real estate. She took a moment to gather herself before leading me toward a back room. "Please, follow me." After instructing a coworker to watch the front desk, she brought me into a small break room and gestured for me to sit across from her. Without wasting time, I handed her the printed photo. "The woman in this photo is my wife, Ashley. She used to date Mark Reynolds in college," I explained. "Does this man look like your husband?" Laura hesitated before taking the photo, her eyes scanning it with a mix of curiosity, hurt, and anger. After a few moments, she handed it back with a stiff nod. "Yes, that's him. When was this taken?" "Not more than 3 months ago," I replied, explaining how I found it on Google Earth. I pointed out Ashley's earrings, ones I had given her for Christmas, that confirmed the timeline. Laura's face briefly softened in sympathy before hardening again. "It's definitely Mark. Have you confronted your wife yet?" "Not yet. She's supposed to be at work right now." Laura looked skeptical. "Are you sure she's at work?" I wasn't, so I called Ashley's phone. No answer. Next, I dialed the gym where she worked. One of her coworkers, Samantha, hesitantly informed me that Ashley had left about 10 minutes earlier, supposedly to meet me for lunch at Logan's. That was news to me. I checked her location on the Find My Phone app. It showed she was at our house. I shared this with Laura, whose face darkened with fury. Without a word, she stormed toward the exit, and I hurried to keep up. "Tom," she snapped at a colleague, "I'm going to lunch. If Mark gets back before I do, call me immediately." Her anger was palpable as we stepped into the elevator. "He'd better have a damn good explanation for this," she muttered. "I let him off the hook once before." That surprised me. "You mean Mark's cheated on you before?" I asked cautiously, quickly apologizing for prying. Laura waved off my apology. "Yeah, back in Colorado. He promised it was a one-time mistake, and we moved here for a fresh start. Looks like that didn't work out." Her bitterness was clear. During the drive to my house, we sat in silence until Laura broke it. "I'm surprised your wife would bring my husband into your home." "It's a calculated risk," I said through clenched teeth. "She knows I'm usually stuck in the office this time of year and would call before coming home, giving her time to cover her tracks." My voice carried more bitterness than I intended, and I gave Laura an apologetic look. "I've been so predictable. For all I know, she could have been cheating for years, and I wouldn't have noticed." Laura remained quiet, only offering a sympathetic glance. "There are usually signs when a spouse is cheating," she said softly. "I know," I admitted, "but I haven't seen any. Our bed life hasn't changed. She doesn't act differently toward me or the kids, and she rarely goes out with friends." Nothing seemed off. "There weren't any signs with Mark either," she said, her voice cracking slightly. We fell silent again. As I turned onto my street, I immediately noticed a red car in the driveway. Laura's voice was tense. "That's Mark's car." If what we suspected was true, It would likely spell the end of both our marriages. I parked on the street, away from view. Without a word, Laura and I made our way toward the backyard. She pulled a small digital camera from her purse, while I silently cursed myself for not grabbing one from the office. We entered quietly through the back door. The moment we were inside, we heard it. Ashley's unmistakable moans of pleasure. Marketh the rage building inside me. My heart broke at the sound of her voice. I signaled for Laura to follow as I led us through the kitchen, expecting to find them in the living room. Peeking in, I froze. There was Ashley, but she wasn't with Mark. She was on the couch with another woman. Confused, I scanned the room and spotted Mark standing nearby, recording the scene with a tablet. Laura raised her camera, silently recording the evidence. My rage boiled over when Mark set down the tablet and joined in. Laura grabbed my arm, trying to hold me back, but it was too late. I stormed into the room, startling everyone. The woman with Ashley turned, her eyes wide in shock. I ignored her and went straight for Mark, grabbing him by the collar and throwing him to the floor. "Shut up, all of you!" I roared. My fists clenched as I glared at Mark. "Move, or I swear I'll tear you apart." It was then I noticed who the other woman was, Chloe Bennett, a 19-year-old neighbor who occasionally babysat our kids. "Chloe?" I asked, stunned. She nodded, looking terrified. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "How long has this been going on?" I growled. "This is only the second time. I swear," she stammered. "You're lying," I spat. Cheating was cheating. Man or woman, it didn't matter. Ashley had betrayed me. My eyes fell on Mark's tablet, which lay on the floor where he had dropped it. Picking it up, I looked Chloe in the eye. "I have a video of you doing things that would ruin your life. Get out of my house and don't ever come back. If you contact my wife again, ever, I'll post this everywhere. Online, to your family, your friends, anyone I can think of. I'll destroy your reputation. Got it?" Chloe's face turned pale, and she nodded in fear. Laura stayed silent, still recording. "Yes," Chloe whispered, trembling. "I understand." "Good," I snapped, pointing to the door. "Now get out, you dirty strumpet." I picked up my phone and called my father-in-law, James, putting him on speaker. The moment Ashley heard his voice, her eyes shut tightly, silently pleading with me not to go through with this. Too late for that. "Hey, James," I said, trying to sound calm. "Kevin? It's good to hear from you. How are you?" He replied warmly. "James, something serious has come up with Ashley and me. Can you and Linda come over as soon as possible?" His tone immediately shifted to concern. "Are the kids okay?" "They're fine. This is about Ashley and me. I'd rather show you than explain it over the phone." James was silent for a moment, probably trying to piece things together. Finally, in a quiet, sad voice, he said, "We'll be there in 15 minutes. Please don't do anything rash before we arrive." "I won't," I assured him before ending the call. I had a similar conversation with my own parents, who promised to come right over. Meanwhile, Ashley sat on the couch, sobbing uncontrollably, knowing what was coming. Laura remained calm, but her focus was on Mark, who was still lying on the floor. "He needs a hospital, Kevin," Laura said firmly. "I understand you want to ruin your wife, but there's a line I won't cross." "Fine," I replied, feigning agreement. "Call an ambulance. But once I'm done here, you can take him wherever you want." Laura hesitated, but eventually sighed. "All right. Just make sure you get everything you need first." She called her office, informing them she had a personal emergency and would be closing for the day. "Mr. Reynolds is headed to the ER," she told them flatly. I found myself wondering why she stayed with Mark after he'd cheated before, but that was her choice. My parents arrived first. As soon as they stepped inside, Mom froze, her eyes darting between Ashley and Mark, while Dad placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "Kev, what's going on?" he asked, though he seemed to already understand. "Mom, Dad, you might want to sit down," I said, gesturing toward the chairs. Mom blushed at the sight of Ashley, who was still barely covered by a blanket. "Kev, what is this?" she hissed. I explained everything, sparing no detail. "I can show you the video from 2 angles if you want," I added. "No," Mom said quickly, her face turning even redder. She moved to hand Ashley a spare blanket, but I stopped her. No, Mom. I want James and Linda to see her for what she really is. They need to know this wasn't my fault. Ashley sobbed louder, pleading, Kev, please don't do this. Shut up, I snapped. What did you expect? That I'd just let this slide and pretend nothing happened? Minutes later, James and Linda arrived. Linda gasped when she saw the scene, nearly tripping over Mark as she stepped inside. What is going on? She demanded, her voice shrill. I turned to Ashley. Are you going to explain, or should I? When she stayed silent, I told them everything, from my discovery on Google Earth to finding Ashley at home with Chloe and Mark. For a moment, both sets of parents were silent, processing the situation, until Linda finally spoke. This must be a mistake. Ashley wouldn't do something like this. I have proof, I said calmly, pulling out the SD card from Laura's camera. Would you like to see it? No, Mom said again, her voice shaky. It won't solve anything. It'll just hurt more people. I don't care, I replied firmly. I'm not letting anyone doubt what happened. I want to settle this now. James raised a hand to stop me. What are you planning to do now? That's the real question. I'm filing for divorce, I said, my voice steady. I can't stay married to someone like her. Laura helped Mark gather his things while I continued. I want full custody of the kids. Ashley can have visitation, but they'll live with me. That's non-negotiable. Linda opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. This isn't a negotiation. If I don't get what I want, I'll make sure everyone knows what Ashley did. Do we understand? Turning to Ashley, I repeated, do you understand? Finally, she snapped, yelling, don't call me a strumpet. You are a strumpet. I shouted back, and I won't let you raise our daughter to be like you. The argument escalated into a full-blown shouting match until I remembered that the kids would be home soon. I glared at Ashley. The kids will be here any minute. Go clean yourself up and get dressed. Then we'll explain to them why Mommy won't be living here anymore. Ashley fired back. Maybe I'll tell them why Daddy won't be here anymore. Fine, I replied coldly. But don't take too long. I carried the camera to the den, making it clear I wasn't bluffing. Realizing I was serious, Ashley rushed after me, her voice panicked. Wait, Kevin, you know the courts won't give you custody. These days, I could commit a crime and still get custody, I retorted without looking back. Not if you tell the judge you don't want it, she said, her voice trembling. I paused, letting my anger show as I turned to face her. You've hurt me more than I ever thought possible, Ashley. I don't even know if Emily and Lucas are mine. Are they? How can you ask that? She whispered, horrified. How can you cheat on me with multiple people? I shot back. I don't know what to believe anymore. I never imagined you'd betray me like this. She broke down again, but I didn't care. I was drained, angry, and ready to be done with it all. Do you really hate me enough to do this? She asked quietly. Yes, I said without hesitation. I'll never forgive you. And if you don't give me what I want in the divorce, I'll spend the rest of my life destroying you, even if it ruins me too. I pocketed the SD card, gripped the tablet tightly, and walked back to the living room, Ashley trailing behind me. As I got closer, I overheard our parents talking. You don't really think he'll go through with it, do you, Robert? This could ruin Ashley's future, Linda said anxiously. My dad's voice was cold. After what she did, I don't care about her future. She deserves whatever comes her way. When I entered, all eyes turned toward me. Linda looked nervous, but I didn't comment. I understood she'd stand by her daughter no matter what. She tried to reason with me. Kevin, it's not fair to demand custody. Kids need their mother. I stared at her, unamused. Mrs. Parker, do you really think I care what you think? Fight me on this, and you know what'll happen. I'm surprised none of you seem to care that Ashley cheated. But whatever, feel free to leave and take your daughter with you. Everyone was stunned by my bluntness. They muttered about how rude I was and how Ashley should take everything in the divorce, but I didn't care. The legal battle didn't go as either of us had expected. Ashley might have exaggerated about the courts, but she wasn't entirely wrong. I didn't think she'd call my bluff about the video, but she did, and unfortunately for her, I wasn't bluffing. After the judge awarded her custody, she smirked at me in victory. I didn't say a word. Later that day, I went to a coffee shop and uploaded the edited video to every platform I could find using Mark's tablet. I even sent the links to Ashley's family through Mark's email and posted them on his social media. When I was done, I tossed the tablet into the river. Ash became infamous after the video went public. She lost her job at the gym, but she still retained custody of the kids. Thankfully, since the divorce was finalized before she was fired, I didn't have to pay spousal support. She also failed in her attempt to get a piece of the family business because, technically, my dad still owned it. I only managed it, and my salary came from him. That kept our finances separate. The judge ordered me to pay $600 a month in child support, but my lawyer delayed the payments until we received the paternity test results. I mostly demanded the test to hurt Ashley, but deep down, I needed reassurance. Thankfully, the results confirmed Emily and Lucas were mine. Ash got half of our savings and checking accounts but couldn't afford to keep the house. She ended up selling it, and we split the proceeds. She used her share to buy a smaller house nearby. I bought a modest home in the same school district so the kids' routines wouldn't be disrupted, though I had to cut back on spending to afford the new place while paying child support. Dad offered to increase my salary, but I declined. A higher salary would only increase my support payments. Despite the upheaval, Emily and Lucas liked my new house, though they hated that their mom and I weren't together anymore. I tried to keep them busy with activities, trips to the park, bike rides, hiking, and occasional swims at the aquatic center. As for my personal life, I started dating again after the divorce. I hadn't done anything wrong, so I saw no reason to stay single. While finding dates wasn't difficult, I wanted something serious. The kids sometimes brought up their mom, asking if we'd ever get back together, but I was clear. We weren't getting back together. I didn't have feelings for her anymore. About 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Samantha Green, one of the trainers from the gym where Ashley used to work. We bumped into each other at the grocery store, and as we chatted, I noticed she seemed just as interested in me as I was in her. "Are you seeing anyone?" she asked casually. "No, not at the moment," I admitted. She smiled, leaned in slightly, and touched my arm. "Do you like what you see?" "Yes, I do," I replied, deciding to take a chance. I invited her over for dinner, and as I wrapped my arms around her waist, I added, "Maybe we can talk about dessert too." Samantha turned out to be everything I needed. She was smart, funny, great with the kids, and incredibly supportive. After our third date, we decided to be exclusive, and I never regretted it. For the first time since my divorce, I felt genuinely happy. A few months into our relationship, I got an unexpected call from James Parker. "Kevin, Ashley's in the hospital. Can you pick up the kids?" I could tell he was waiting for me to ask why she was hospitalized, but I didn't. "Is it anything that could harm the kids?" I asked flatly. "No, but she's at the Catherine Center," he admitted, referring to a local mental health facility. I shrugged and ended the call. On my way to pick up the kids, I briefly thought about Ashley. I had analyzed what happened in our marriage countless times, but I never asked her directly why she cheated. I didn't trust she'd tell me the truth. In the end, it didn't matter. For me, infidelity was a line that couldn't be crossed. Staying with her would have meant losing my self-respect, and I wasn't willing to do that. When I arrived at the Parkers' house, I could tell Emily and Lucas weren't doing well. They clung to each other, which wasn't like them. James looked bitter as he sent the kids inside to gather their things. Once we were alone, he turned to me, clearly angry. "What's wrong with you, Kevin?" he demanded. "Other than mild nearsightedness?" "Nothing," I replied sarcastically. "Stop being a smartass," he snapped. "Your wife is in a mental hospital, and you don't care?" James snapped. "First of all, she's not my wife anymore." I shot back coldly. "She destroyed our marriage, not me. And no, I don't care. Why should I? She cheated on me, not the other way around. It's your fault she's in the hospital." James retorted angrily. "You posted that video, ruined her reputation, and made it impossible for her to find a job." "I warned her," I said, my tone icy. "I told everyone what would happen if I didn't get what I wanted. She chose to fight, and now she's dealing with the fallout. If she's not making what she's worth, maybe she should take it up with her pimp." "You son of a," James hissed, grabbing my vest in rage. I calmly pried his hand away, making it clear I wouldn't be pushed around. Think carefully before you use force, I said evenly. I know you love Ashley, but even you must see this is all her doing. Wouldn't you have done the same in my position? James relaxed, his anger giving way to defeat. Maybe I would, he admitted reluctantly. It's just easier to be mad at you than to face what my daughter did. Go ahead. Tell me what's going on, I said, though my irritation lingered. He hesitated before revealing the truth. Ashley tried to end her life. Emily found her after she took a bottle of sleeping pills. She called 911. I felt a wave of guilt for Emily, imagining the trauma she endured. At the same time, I was proud of her for keeping calm and doing the right thing. How are they coping? I asked. Emily's holding it together, but Lucas is taking it harder. Emily hasn't left his side, James admitted, his voice pained. Thanks for telling me, I said, trying to suppress my frustration. I'll take care of the kids. Over the next few days, I stayed close to Emily and Lucas. I praised Emily for her quick thinking, which made her smile proudly. Lucas, though quieter, seemed to feel reassured by the extra attention. A few weeks later, Ashley was discharged from the mental health facility. They say she's recovered, I told Samantha skeptically, but I don't see how therapy and medication can fix the real issues that led her to this. Ashley wanted to return to joint custody. Unsure of what to do, I asked the kids how they felt. Emily hesitated, but Lucas was excited about spending time with his mom again. You could fight it, but unless you want another legal battle, you might have to agree, Samantha said practically. You could argue she's unfit because of the suicide attempt, but it might not be worth it. I won't stop her from seeing the kids, I admitted, feeling defeated. I didn't think you would, Samantha said gently. I just don't want the kids to go through more trauma. I don't know what turned her into this selfish, irresponsible. I paused, searching for the right word. Which? Samantha leaned back thoughtfully before smiling. Why don't we talk about something more pleasant? She suggested, stroking my hand. I smiled back. What do you have in mind? Over the past few months, I had grown closer to Samantha. She was everything I wanted in a partner, and I realized it was time. I pulled out a small ring box. I thought we could talk about our future, I said softly. Samantha, I love you, and so do the kids. I hate being apart from you. Will you marry me? Her eyes widened as she looked at the ring. The kids helped me pick it out, I added, trying to lighten the mood. Samantha looked at me with a sad smile, then gently closed the ring box. Kevin, this is beautiful, and I'm touched. But marriage? Really? She sighed. You're a wonderful lover and a great father, but marriage isn't what I want. Especially not with someone who has kids and an ex to deal with. I felt my heart sink. I see, I said quietly, tossing the ring box aside. Thanks for being honest. Sorry for bothering you. Samantha gathered her things and walked to the door. We exchanged one last look. I leaned in for a goodbye kiss, but she turned her cheek. Realizing it was over, I closed the door behind her. The weeks after Samantha left were tough. I'd been through breakups before, but this one stung more. She was the first woman I'd truly connected with after my divorce. The kids noticed her absence right away. Why did Samantha leave, Dad? Lucas asked one night. It wasn't because of you, I explained. She just didn't want to be with me anymore. Emily, more perceptive than her brother, seemed to understand there was more to it, but chose not to push. Over time, Lucas tried to bring up his mom in conversations, hoping we'd get back together. I knew it was just his way of coping, but I couldn't let myself dwell on the past. It was time to move on. I started dating again, but I was upfront about my situation. No misunderstandings, no rushing into anything serious. Most women lost interest once they heard about my ex-wife's issues, and honestly, I didn't blame them. Life felt lonelier than ever. I occasionally talked to Laura. She had divorced Mark, but didn't take much from him. I didn't want the big house, she told me. Too many bad memories. I just want a home, not a status symbol. So, what did you do? I asked, curious. We sold the house and split the equity. I bought a smaller place, she said. I didn't sell my share of Mark's real estate business, and I didn't go after maximum alimony. I'm stronger than that. I respect that, I said sincerely. Laura never judged me for posting the video of Ashley. She understood why I did it. And though life hadn't turned out as either of us planned, we were both trying to move forward in our own way. I can't blame you, Laura said thoughtfully, but that video won't get you custody unless Ashley agrees. I know, I admitted, but I had to do something. Laura gave me a knowing look. You're still angry. I sighed. Yeah, but not as much as before. She didn't push further and change the subject. How are the kids? They're okay, I replied. Lucas is still hopeful his mom and I will get back together. Emily's too smart for her own good. Kids grow up fast, Laura said with a wistful smile. Yeah, they do, I agreed. Her son, Ethan, was often at my house, playing with Lucas. One afternoon, when Laura came to pick him up, she noticed the ring box on the counter. Kevin, what's this? She asked, holding it up. I sighed. That's what's left of my engagement to Samantha. After hearing my story, Laura shook her head sadly. I'm sorry, Kevin. Thanks, I said. I guess I'm just not good at picking the right people. She laughed softly. Join the club. I'm not much better. We shared a laugh, though we both knew Laura had someone special in her life. It looked like wedding bells were in her future. Do you think the problem is me? I asked after a pause. Laura studied me. Maybe you have unresolved issues. You never found out why Ashley cheated, did you? That could still be weighing on you. I never tried to find out, I admitted. But will talking to her really help? Maybe. What do you have to lose? She said with a shrug. Good point, I said. I guess it can't hurt. That Sunday, when I dropped the kids off at Ashley's house, I decided to ask her. As I walked them to the door, Lucas looked confused. Dad, what are you doing? I need to talk to your mom, I said. Don't worry. They nodded, and I knocked on the door. Ashley opened it, clearly surprised to see me. What do you want? She asked, barely polite. I need to talk to you. In private. She sent the kids inside, crossed her arms, and gave me a suspicious look. What does the great Kevin want now? I want to know why you cheated on me, I said plainly. Her eyes widened in shock. What? Why ask now? It's been over a year. I was too angry to care before, I admitted. But now, I need to know why you destroyed our marriage. You're blaming it all on me, she said bitterly. You're the one who cheated, I replied calmly. I never did. If you don't want to tell me, just say so, and I'll leave. She hesitated, visibly struggling with her emotions. Finally, she looked down, then met my eyes. I felt a desire to be with another woman, she admitted quietly. Why didn't you explore that before we got serious? I asked, still in disbelief. I tried, she said, but I always chickened out, worried about what my parents would think. After a pause, she continued. One night, Chloe caught me alone in the locker room, and I couldn't resist. After that, I realized I couldn't give her up. So, you decided you were gay? No, Ashley said, shaking her head. I'm bisexual, but I knew how you felt about monogamy. Even if I gave up Chloe, that first time would have been enough to end things with you. You're right, I said bluntly. I made my expectations clear from the start. Yes, you did, she agreed. But it wasn't easy to throw away everything for a fling. Damn it, Ashley. It couldn't have been that hard. I snapped. What about Mark? He's not a woman. No, he's not, she admitted. He started as a client, kept pushing for more, and I eventually gave in. By then, I knew if you found out, I was already done for, so I tried to keep it secret. So, it wasn't just one mistake, I said, struggling to stay calm. No, she admitted quietly. It went on for weeks, until you caught us and ended it. I ended it? You're blaming me? I asked in disbelief. For once, I'm not blaming you, she said. But yes, you stopped it. I almost wish I hadn't asked, I said, shaking my head. Laura thought knowing would help, but now I just feel worse. You didn't respect me enough to be honest. You just went after what you wanted. Ashley shrugged. I didn't think about you until it was too late. Did you ever love me? I asked quietly. Yes, she said, her voice trembling. And I regret hurting you and the kids. But that doesn't change what happened. Were you ever faithful? I asked. Yes, she replied. Until that night with Chloe. After that, everything spiraled out of control. My therapist helped me see how wrong I was. Her tone shifted, becoming bitter again. But you didn't have to ruin everything, Kevin. You destroyed my reputation. I can't find a job, and even moving won't help. You even ruined my relationship with Chloe. She doesn't talk to me anymore because of that video. I took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. I warned you what would happen if I didn't get what I wanted in the divorce. You chose to ignore me, thinking I was bluffing. I'm not a liar, Ashley. Tears streamed down her face. No, Kevin. You did it for revenge. Your ego couldn't handle the hurt. No, Ashley, I said quietly. If you'd been honest with me from the start, I might have hated you, but I'd still respect you. Instead, you chose to lie and cheat. You're not even as honest as a streetwalker. They at least admit what they are. The words hit her hard, but she didn't argue. She just looked at me with regret. Kevin, I know I have no right to be mad at you, she said softly. My therapist says I'm really mad at myself, but I directed at you. I told the kids the divorce was my fault, not yours. Thank you for that, Ashley, I said, feeling a bit of tension ease. It'll help the kids. I turned to leave, thinking the conversation was over, but Ashley's voice stopped me. Wait, she said hesitantly. I have some questions too. I turned back, a little surprised. What kind of questions? Why did you give up on me so easily? She asked, sounding genuinely confused. Why didn't you fight for me? That's ridiculous, I snapped. Don't you remember what we talked about when we were dating? I told you that infidelity was something I'd never forgive, that it destroys families. Once you made the choice to cheat, there was nothing left to fight for. She sobbed softly, wiped her tears, and asked another question. How did you find out I was cheating? We were so careful. I let out a bitter laugh. It was pure luck, or bad luck, depending on how you see it, I said. Then I explained how I had accidentally discovered the truth through Google Earth. As I told the story, Ashley's eyes widened in disbelief. When I finished, she sank into a chair on the porch, looking shaken. This story is so insane. It sounds like something out of a movie, she muttered, shaking her head. Yeah, I said with a grim smile. It would almost be funny if it hadn't happened to me. Ashley looked at me with genuine regret. Kevin, I'm really sorry, she said softly. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope one day you'll let go of the anger. I don't know if that'll ever happen, I replied, turning to leave. But thanks for saying it. That was the last time we spoke in person for a long while. A year passed, and my personal life stayed mostly the same. I went on a few dates but wasn't looking for anything serious. My focus remained on my kids, and watching them grow became the best part of my life. Lucas, now 10, was showing an interest in the family business and loved helping me with landscaping projects, especially the Japanese rock gardens we built together. Emily, at 12, seemed interested in healthcare, though she still had time to figure things out. It was because of Emily that I volunteered to be a chaperone for the school's fall sock hop. Laura and her new husband, Jason, had convinced me to help out. If you have kids around that age, you know how hard it is to get parents involved in school events, so I figured I'd step up. There I was, standing awkwardly in the gym, watching kids dance to music I didn't recognize, when Laura appeared beside me. Hey, she said, startling me. What? I asked, confused. Why don't you go talk to her? She suggested, nodding toward a woman across the gym. Laura, what are you talking about? I asked, baffled. That teacher over there, she said, pointing. The cute brunette in the cream and charcoal sweater. She's been checking you out all night. I glanced over and spotted the woman. Are you sure she was looking at me? I asked, skeptical. Trust me, Kevin, Laura said, grinning. Women notice these things. Go talk to her before the night's over. I shrugged. Why not? I thought. She was attractive, and I hadn't had much luck with anyone else. After a brief hesitation, I decided to approach her. As I walked over, I noticed she looked about my age. When she turned, her bright green eyes caught my attention. Hi, I said once I reached her. I'm Kevin Miller, Emily and Lucas's dad. She smiled warmly and extended her hand. Hi, Kevin. I'm Rachel Brooks, Nathan's mom. I teach sixth grade here. Nice to meet you, Rachel, I said, returning her smile. Likewise, she replied. It's not often you see a single dad volunteering at these events. I shrugged. Well, my kids are worth it. Besides, it's not like I had other plans tonight. She raised an eyebrow playfully. How do you know I'm single? I asked, curious. Your ring finger's empty, she said with a grin. And the woman you were talking to earlier is here with her husband. I'm good at people watching, and you seemed unattached. You're very observant, I said, impressed. Yeah, I'm single. She grinned, and I realized I was still holding her hand. Oh, sorry, I said, quickly letting go. Don't be, she said, laughing softly. If it bothered me, I would have told you. Her smile lit up her whole face, and I found myself captivated. Whether it was her striking green eyes or something else, I couldn't look away, and I didn't want to. We spent the next several minutes talking about our kids. I shared how Emily was already thinking about a future in nursing and how Lucas enjoyed helping me with work. Rachel told me about Nathan's love for electronics and the challenges that came with it. Before I knew it, Laura nudged me again. Time to pack up, Kevin, she said with a smirk. The DJ's already wrapping things up. We helped gather the kids and ensured everyone left with the right parent. Afterward, as we walked toward the parking lot, Rachel surprised me by slipping her hand into mine. Call me sometime, she said, placing a folded piece of paper into my shirt pocket. I'd love to have dinner with you. With that, she and her son headed to their car, disappearing into the night. That evening felt like a turning point. I didn't wait long to call Rachel. She was charming, funny, and down to earth. I couldn't stop thinking about her. Our first dinner date didn't lead anywhere beyond a few sweet kisses, but it was special. Rachel seemed just as interested in me as I was in her, though she made it clear she wanted to take things slow. She intrigued me in so many ways, smart, practical, and resourceful. Like me, she didn't have a lot of money to spare, but she was great at coming up with clever ways to save. She shared her life hacks, and in return, I discovered she had a love for gardening. She often joked about her black thumb, but it made her all the more endearing. Fortunately, I knew a few techniques for reviving struggling plants and was happy to share them with Rachel. I also helped her with a few budget-friendly DIY projects around her home, turning her backyard and patio into a cozy outdoor living space. As we spent more time together, I opened up about my past, telling her about Ashley and, later, Samantha. Saying she was shocked would be an understatement, but unlike others I had shared this with, Rachel wasn't particularly fazed by the fact that I had posted the video online. Actions have consequences, she said matter-of-factly. All things considered, she got off lightly. Rachel got along well with my kids, and her son Nathan was a good kid too. The kids bonded quickly, which was a relief. As time passed, my relationship with Rachel deepened, emotionally and physically. After 8 months, I found myself seriously considering marriage again. Thoughts of the disaster with Samantha lingered in my mind, but I wasn't going to let past mistakes ruin my future. I talked to my kids about it. Emily was thrilled, but Lucas wasn't as enthusiastic, probably still holding on to the hope that Ashley and I would get back together. Still, he agreed it would be okay. With their blessing, I bought another engagement ring, having sold the one I originally bought for Samantha. Now, all that remained was figuring out how to propose. After some thought and consulting my mom, I decided to do it at my 40th birthday party, which was just 2 weeks away. It wouldn't be a big event, just close friends, family, and Rachel's parents and brother. I thought it would be perfect. The next 2 weeks were spent keeping the secret from Rachel and Nathan, making sure the kids didn't accidentally spill the beans, and sending a quiet invite to Rachel's family. I was careful not to give away my plan, and finally, the big evening arrived. My parents rented a private room at Misha's, a local restaurant known for its Russian cuisine. The food was excellent, and we had a great time eating and dancing. When it was time for gifts, I opened each one and thanked everyone. Rachel looked surprised but happy to see her parents and brother there. After unwrapping the last present, I stood up, wrapped my arms around Rachel, and pulled her close. She rested her head on my shoulder as I smiled at everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight, I said, beaming. "You've made this the best 40th birthday ever." My little joke earned polite laughter, and I heard one of the kids whisper that they didn't get it. The laughter provided the perfect cover for Laura to discreetly hand me the ring box. My heart pounded as I prepared for what I was about to do. "There's just one more thing before we all leave," I said, my voice steady despite the nerves. "I've received some great gifts tonight, but I'm hoping for one more." Rachel tilted her head, looking at me with a puzzled expression. I met her gaze with a grin. "Rachel, I love you. You've completed my life, and the only way it could get better is if you'd spend the rest of it with me." I got down on one knee and opened the ring box. "Rachel, will you marry me?" The room fell silent as everyone realized what was happening. I stared into Rachel's eyes, waiting for her joyful yes. But instead, she hesitated. I waited and waited. My heart sank as the seconds dragged on. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Rachel?" I said quietly, my voice trembling. "Please say something." She mumbled, her eyes darting nervously around the room. "Kevin, this isn't the right time. Maybe we should talk about this later," she stammered, stepping back. I sighed, stood up, and closed the ring box, feeling my heart shatter. Without another word, Rachel rushed to Nathan, grabbed his hand, and hurried out of the restaurant, leaving behind her coat in her haste. For a moment, I just stood there, stunned, before turning to see everyone staring at me in disbelief. "Well," I said, forcing a wide, fake smile. "Thanks for coming and making this a great evening. Have a good night, everyone." I gathered my things, slipped the ring box into my coat pocket, and motioned for the kids to follow me. My mom approached gently. "Kevin, honey," she said softly, taking my hand. "Do you want us to take the kids tonight?" I shrugged, too numb to care. "Do you guys want to stay with Nana and Pappy tonight?" I asked. "Yeah, that would be great," Lucas said eagerly. Emily, however, looked up at me with sad eyes. "Daddy, I'm so sorry." "Thanks, Emily, but you don't have to say anything," I said, cutting her off. I wasn't ready to hear any sympathy. "I just want you to know I love you, Daddy," she whispered, hugging me tightly. "I love you too, Emily," I whispered back, trying to hold it together. After saying goodbye to my parents, I headed home. The drive was short, but it felt endless. Once inside, I locked the door, tossed my things onto the couch, and grabbed a beer. I drank it quickly, but it didn't last long enough to numb the pain. I considered going to the liquor store but decided against it. Getting drunk wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I sat down and distracted myself by watching old sitcoms on Netflix. A few hours later, I fell asleep in the chair. The next morning, I woke up with a stiff back from sleeping in such an awkward position. "I'm not doing that again," I muttered, stretching before heading to the shower. While getting dressed, I realized I hadn't turned on my phone since the night before. When I powered it on, I saw my voicemail inbox was full. I had several text messages too, friends offering sympathy and an ear if I wanted to talk. One voicemail stood out. It was from Rachel. Her message was short. "I'm sorry, Kevin. Please believe me. I have my reasons. I hope someday you'll understand. And forgive me. Goodbye." I didn't respond to any of the messages or calls. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, trying not to think about Rachel. And that, in a way, is the story of my life. In some tales, the cheated husband ends up rich, marries a supermodel, and lives in a mansion. But that's not how things turned out for me. It's been 10 years since my divorce from Ashley. Emily is in college, studying nursing. Lucas just graduated from high school and plans to study business. Whether he'll join the family business remains to be seen. As for me, I'm 45 now and still single. Occasionally, I meet someone for some fun, but there's no one in my life I'd call special. A year ago, Samantha briefly came back into my life. She made it clear she was only interested in having a good time. We partied for a couple of months before going our separate ways without any hard feelings. "Why didn't you ever get married?" Samantha asked me one night. I shrugged. "It's not worth the risk anymore. I'd love to have a wife, but not all stories have happy endings. And mine didn't." Rachel's parents later told me she had moved in with someone about a year after my failed proposal. They hoped I might convince her to come back, but I found that idea absurd. If being with me was why she left, how could I bring her back? Ashley eventually remarried, this time to the owner of the diner where she worked. The kids say they're happy, and I hope for his sake he had her sign a prenup. My father passed away a few months ago, leaving the family business to me. Unfortunately, I don't think my mom will be around much longer. Grief has consumed her, and it's evident in every word and move she makes. I always wanted a marriage like my parents had, loving and committed. But maybe that's not possible in today's world. I'm a landscaper, not a philosopher, so I'll leave those questions to the experts. Before leaving me for the second time, Samantha asked me an interesting question. Do you have any regrets? Of course I do, I replied. I regret marrying a cheater. I regret wasting my time with Samantha and Rachel, thinking they were life partners. I regret not finding someone who shares my values. But I knew what she was really asking. She wanted to know if I regretted making Ashley infamous by posting that video. My answer was simple. No, I don't regret it, and I never will. She got what she deserved. If I had to do it all over again, I'd do the same thing. As for me, I'll keep working, loving my kids, and looking forward to being a grandfather someday. I haven't entirely given up on finding a wife, but it's no longer a priority. I'll find happiness where and when I can. It's not the life I would have chosen, but it's not a bad life.